Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Well, over the last couple of months I've been getting quite a few requests from you guys to build some 72nd scale armor. And I just received in today a whole bunch of stuff from Modelcollect. And I thought, well, this would be a perfect opportunity because they offer some really unusual vehicles. So I thought I would build this one up. This is the E100 tank body, no turret of course on it, and they mounted onto it a V1 launcher. So it's a total fictitious tank because they only actually made just a couple of chassis of the E100s and never actually got them into use or anything. So, but 1946 type thing, if the war had continued on, who knows, maybe they would have done something like this. But it is fictional as of this moment. So what we're going to do on this is I'm going to kind of show you the inside parts on it. It looks like it's a pretty straightforward kit, not too many parts, rubber band tracks, but weird enough that I think it'll make up into a nice little model kit. So let's get started on it. Okay, I thought I would show you the parts, a little bit of it before we get started on the building. I cut out the V1 already, haven't sanded or anything yet, but I thought before I do that, give you guys a little breakdown on it. So here are the sprues that make up the suspension arms as well as all of the road wheels. Look pretty nicely detailed on those. And then we do have the parts of the hull. We have actually two different upper hulls here, and obviously one's designed for the actual E100 kit they make, and the other one will be for the rocket launcher that we're doing. And then we have all of our springs. Some more of the suspension arms are separated, or actually all one piece right here. So we'll figure out which ones we need to do on that. The hull is going to be made up of multiple pieces. In fact, here's our lower piece right here, as well as the sides and then the big side skirts. And it also looks like you're taking parts off of other kits. This is a different rocket launcher from another vehicle they make, but I guess you need this portion of it for this build. And there's even a engine inside of this too, with the radiators, things like that. Now they do give you some photo etch for the grills, which is very nice. Even in this scale, it would look really good on it. So not too bad on the part count, because like I was saying, a lot of these parts are for other kits, so you won't have to put all this together. So I will start the build process on the V2 and see how it comes along. Okay, the V2 portion of it is not too many parts. There's probably only a grand total of 6 parts here, but there will be quite a bit of little cleanup. The fit is very good on this, and we just have to go over it with our sanding block. And if you're not familiar with these are a foam-based block. What's good about these is when you go to sand like this, you're not going to leave a flat spot as easily as if you were to use it with like a sanding stick that's a hard surface. So like I said, there's a little bit of cleanup that we're gonna have to do on this, mainly on here, and I've left these on because I didn't want to file any of this away while it's one piece, because I sometimes find if you file some of that away, you kind of sometimes will leave a divot behind, and then when you put it in, there'll be kind of like a hole that you have to go back and fill later. So like I said, not too much to this, so I'm gonna get this all sanded and put together, and then we'll start on the hull of the or actually on the carrier first, and then we'll do the hull. Okay, the kit goes together pretty straightforward so far, and I still have to do some more sanding on these pieces. But I just thought I would point out to you real quick too, the plastic on this kit is very soft, so it makes it very easy for sanding purposes. Even with this fine grade 240 sanding stick, we can knock the little burrs off from the sprue marks. But you just want to be careful because it makes the glue dry a little slower. So like on this portion, we're setting it up. We want to just make sure that the nozzle stays nice and straight throughout the drying process. So anything that you're drying, make sure you're keeping an eye on it so that you don't have parts that are going to move. Like this is the little piece that, like the deflector, that'll take the exhaust to both sides, and it keeps wanting to fall down. So we just want to keep an eye on it just as you're going forward on this kit. But so far it's coming out pretty good, and it's going together really quick and easy. Okay, I've got the launch rail all completed, and it has a little ring on here, so it'll be able to mount onto the top of the E100. And then of course the V1 will mount right in like this. Now we're not going to attach it right now because we want to paint the V1 up separately, where it's got the blue bottom and then the camouflage top. And then we'll probably go ahead and paint this like a German gray, and then possibly do some red oxide primer on the E100 to kind of break it up so it's just not all one big solid color. I think it'll look kind of cool that way. One other little tip I might be able to give you guys too is when I was assembling some of the carriage down here, the launch rail, I put a little extra super glue inside, some CA glue, into the little areas to give it a little bit more rigidity, because the plastic is real soft and I just don't want over time anything to have any problems with warpage or anything. So just a little minor thing, and it also will speed up the ability to build on this too, because since it is such a simple construction, because it's such soft plastic, you sometimes could be waiting, you know, way over an hour just to glue two parts together. So just a little tip to help you out with that. Okay, I'm just in the process right now of sanding off the little burr that you get when you cut this photo etch piece out. It's a really tiny little piece, and we'll glue those with the CA glue once we get all of those cut out. I've also gone ahead and started to assemble the firewall in the engine compartment inside there. Now, even if you're not going to put the engine in this kit, you're going to need to put those pieces in, because that supports the whole portion of the rear deck. So you can see once we get that in, that'll keep this all nice and sturdy, and then we can glue the engine deck on as well. So far it's going together pretty good. There was just a little bit of a fit issue that when I had to put this rear plate on, I had to put a lot of pressure on to keep the glue setting up, because the sidewalls of the sponsons wanted to flare out a little bit. So and there is a little bit of a tiny gap down here on the bottom, and a little bit actually on the bottom over here too, but it's minor that we can go in there with a little putty and fill that right in. So not too bad on it. But other than that, everything else has been going together pretty well. Got a little bit more sanding to do back here. But so what I'm going to do now is we'll finish up cutting out all the photo etch. And I'll show you the photo etch real quick here too. It's pretty nice. You're not going to be able to see any of the radiators and stuff inside here because of the size of the photo etch holes. So I'm not building any of the parts inside here, or the engine for that matter, because I don't plan on having any of the hatches open. And but they do give you an engine that if you do decide you want to build it, it's there for you to work on. So I will finish putting on all the rest of the photo etch, as well as all of the exhausts and everything else that goes on the back of the vehicle, to finish sanding up, getting all cleaned up. And just before I go to put the top on, I will show you guys what it looks like. Okay, we've got the photo etch parts glued on all the grills to the back. Keep in mind there is a top and a bottom to each one of those grills, so make sure you get those right as you start to put them on. We've also glued on all of the back pieces, all the little tow hooks, things like that. And we're ready to attach the upper and lower part of the hull. Okay, now it's time to talk about the tracks that come with this kit. And as you can see, they're quite distorted. There's a zigzag pattern going back and forth on it. And this is after I've been kind of stretching and pulling on them, trying to get at least one side as straight as possible, because that obviously will be the side that sticks on the outside of the vehicle. What I'm probably going to end up doing, because it's such a long run, and we are going to put the side skirts on this vehicle, I might just take the straightest piece of track out of the middle here, or somewhere out of here, and just glue it around just to the top of the drive sprocket to the top of the idler. Don't forget, these have a big side skirt that goes all the way around it, so you're not going to see any of the top of the track. That way we can get the best piece of track on the outside, because there are some areas, like this side is much straighter. You can see the inside is just all over the place. But before we do any of that, we're going to paint them and weather them and try to get them looking decent, and then we'll cut them to shape to put them into place. Okay, well here we are. Here is our mostly completed model. We just have to do little things like the tracks and things like that. But We did put the skirts on, and those were a little problematic. They had a little bit of a wave inside of it that with a little super glue and a little extra thin cement here, we were able to get that out of there. Now, I've just used a little tiny bit of masking tape, and that's what that blue stuff is, just to hold the V1 in place. Overall, like I was telling you earlier, the kit had, I would say, mostly good fit, other than the side skirts, and then of course the tracks I was a little disappointed in. It's a pretty decent little kit, and actually going to be kind of fun to go ahead and paint this thing, especially with the different colors that we can make, since it is a fictional piece. I think what we're finally going to go ahead and do is do the body in red oxide primer with a yellow, or dark yellow, I should say, camouflage pattern on it, but really scratch that up. The platform up here, I think I'm going to do like a German gray, and then finally we'll paint the V1, the dark green on top with the light RLM blue on the bottom. So it'll be kind of like a hodgepodge of different colors, as if it's the end of the war, or the war went on a little longer and they were just using whatever kind of paint that they had on it. So we're going to go ahead and start doing the painting right now. I am going to do the shadow coat, at least on the body, and actually probably the V1 as well. I think with the light blue and then the lighter green, or the green on top, it'll show up fairly well on it. So we have a little variation in panel. Okay, over the next minute or so, I'm going to just go over the steps that we did for the paint job on the vehicle. As you can see, we did the black and white shadow coat, and now we're spraying the entire vehicle lightly with Mission Models red oxide primer. And as we move on to the V1, we're going to spray first the entire, call it airplane, with light blue from Tamiya. And we're going to do that kind of a light coat as well, too, so we can see some of the pop-outs. And then with that dry, now we're taking some dark green and just kind of doing like a random crosshatch pattern to give it some camouflage on the top, and only the top of the V1. And with the red oxide primer now dry, we're going to go over with some green as well as some dark yellow camouflage to take up most of the vehicle. And finally, we're going to paint the launch platform with German gray. And finally, on the tracks, now that they've been sprayed dark or NATO black, we're going over it with our chipping brown color with a nice misting coat, and that gives them kind of a nice oxidized color to it. Now we're going to take our chipping color and just lightly with a foam sponge start to put some scratches on it. Now this is the part that's sometimes a little bit difficult, just because these are so small and we don't want to have the scratches too large on it. I got to get fairly close with the camera in front of me, so I'm just kind of showing you, how we're going to go about doing it. And I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of it without the camera in the way, and we'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, now that we have the chipping on, we're going to put a light coat of enamel thinner on here, and then we're going to use some of our streaking grime, some rust, some different colors of streaking stuff to get on there to really dirty up the vehicle. Now also keep in mind too, as I'm about to do this, I have dull coated the entire model already with lacquer clear coat, so anything on here is not going directly onto the paint. And I'm just going to show you a few little areas with those little drops right there. Then we can put a little extra on, and then just kind of put some little rings on. Now obviously this has got to be a little bit harder to do than the 35th scale, because we don't want the streaks too large. But if you play around with it a little bit, I think we can get the hang of it and have it come out pretty good. And that's the nice thing about these enamel washes, that if you don't like the way something looks, put a little extra enamel wash on it and it'll come right off. So I'm going to keep messing around with these and going back and forth till I get it to the way I want it to look, and then I will come back and show you what it looks like. Should also point out too that if you have any flat surfaces like up on top, the way to get a nice effect on it is to take just a touch of your grime, plop it into place like that, and then just hitting with the top of the brush with a little bit of thinner on. It'll kind of blend it all out. Because the sides, obviously, it looks really good with streaks coming down as rainwater would. But this will duplicate what looks like when, you know, dirt and grime gets on top of the vehicle and rain and just kind of puddles. We also want to take some of our Tamiya black panel liner and taking most of it off the brush. We just want to put a few little highlights on some of these areas to make them stick out. And if you get any of it anywhere you don't want, or it's too much on one area, don't forget you can still use just a little enamel thinner to go over it and take it right off. So I am just going to go highlight a few more of these little pieces, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, using a little bit of the light MIG wash, as well as a few of the Vallejo pigments of like new rust, old rust, kind of doing like a little mixture of it here. We're going to put a little bit of a rust effect on the blast shield that goes in back of that. And that's with the interpretation that it takes a lot of heat, paint wears off, gets wet and rusts. And one thing that should talk about, since I'm doing that there, a lot of times too people say, well, something's not realistic or something's not this. You sometimes got to use your artist's interpretation of some stuff. And the reason I say some things like that is sometimes if you were to make it look just like the real thing in scale, it looks funny or fake or things like that. Sometimes you need to do things a little bit differently to make it pop and, you know, catch your eye a little bit more on that. So that's totally up to you. You've got to be happy with the thing. So always build to impress yourself first. Okay, we've gone ahead and put the tracks on now, and we're going to try to dirty those up a little bit as well. Put a little enamel thinner on, and then we're just going to put a little light coat of light sienna on the tracks. Kind of give them a dirty effect to it. And we're going to do the front, the back, the sides, all of the different parts of the track. And then when we're done with it, we will use a little bit of our dark steel to kind of highlight the tops of all the pads, so they kind of have a little bit of wear and tear on the tops. Here is our completed model. I'll first give you a little 360. And then I'll point out a few other little minor things that we did to it. Of course, you can see right off that we put the decals on the V1, and then it was just a matter of going over the different components just over and over again until I got the look that I was looking for. You can see that we highlighted all the panels with the dark panel line, did all the streaking, did some of the rust stains on the back here, as well as a little bit of metallic color on the edges of the tracks. And what I'll do is I will drop down a little bit here so you can see the rest of it. And hopefully you can see that we highlighted all the top edges of the track to make it look as if it's gone through like a city environment, would have been worn down a little bit. This also gives you another little angle all the way around. And of course, size of a quarter right there gives you an idea on size wise. The whole thing is less than 5 inches long. So all in all, I actually had a lot of fun building this kit. There were a few challenges. The tracks were not the greatest in the world, but we worked through that and got them to look fairly decent. There was a little problems with fit with the fenders, like I told you, but that was minor. That little super glue and, you know, taking your time, we got it to go. So even though it's a totally fictitious vehicle, you know, based in reality, that they would have possibly done something like that. But like I said, it was just a real fun build. It's quick. These are probably, I'd say probably about a 2 to 3 day build total, because there's just not that many parts to it. Also, the kits are inexpensive too. They're in the $20 range. So if you're looking for something unusual, and also too in 35th scale, this thing would be massive. So I want to thank you guys for watching. It's, like I said, been a lot of fun doing a 72nd scale, and I certainly plan on doing some more. It's a good size saver, because if you look at the size of the regular E100, that kit is got almost a foot long, so it's much easier to put this inside a display case. So like I was saying, thank you again for watching, and please stay tuned because they have many more videos coming.